all you go by?
Yeah, my man. Hey, folks, it's your boy Iceberg Bricks. I'm back with another edition of On the Icebox, and tonight my guest is String Cheese and Applesauce. That's right, String Cheese and Applesauce. And now you're thinking, like, wait a minute, I know that name. And I'm gonna tell you why you know that name. Well, I'm gonna show you why you know that name. This guy has very amazing builds, and one of his latest builds blew me out of the water. And it was all the rage all over Instagram. So without further ado, how you doing, good sir? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks. Thank you for coming on the show, my man. I appreciate your time, man.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going in your Lego world, man?
Well, it's a very busy time for me. I've been doing a lot of building, as you mentioned, and then I've been hitting up quite a few conventions here recently. So I've been doing a little bit of traveling to those conventions. So it's a very busy time for me. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to spend a lot of time on YouTube with all of that other stuff that I have going on. But I'm very involved in the Lego hobby, even though you may not see it much on YouTube much anymore.
Okay.
So you see it more, like you said, on the Instagram and other social media platforms.
Right. So what shows have you been doing this year?
So recently I've hit a couple Brick Universe shows. They come pretty close to my area. I'm located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay.
So the Brick Universe shows come to Oklahoma quite a bit. And for me, that's only a couple-hour drive away.
Okay.
And then they also come to Little Rock, which is another neighboring state, which is still drivable. So unfortunately, not many shows come to the Dallas area. It's unfortunate. I don't know why they don't. I think it's just too expensive.
Right.
But I am going to a Brickfest live show that's going to be in Houston in a couple weeks. So I'm recovering from Brick Universe Tulsa, and I'm preparing for Brick Fest Live Houston.
Okay. Those are fairly large shows and stiff competition.
Yeah, the depending on what city you go to, they're pretty large shows. And I've been to larger ones. Like I've been to Chicago for their I think it's called Brick World. Yeah, Brick World Chicago. I had to look at my name badge thing I have over here. There's so many there's so many conventions that they all use the word brick and con in it, and you forget how they order it. But
right.
So the Brick Universe shows are not quite as big as, say, like the Brick Con or the Brick Fair Alabama or the show that they have in Seattle. Those are enormous compared to some of the others. But there is still a great amount of builders there that have great builds. So, and I don't go there for competition per se. It's really just, you spend your time in your room making your mocks, and it's fun to show them to people. So that's more or less why I go to them, is to show, people the work that I've been doing, and hopefully that they enjoy it as much as I do.
Right. Okay.
And in turn, obviously some of them have been winning awards. So I have a pretty good stack of awards that I've won from various conventions.
Now I'm putting the cart before the horse, but tell us what you won.
So I have won. So in 2016, I won for Best Town. So I have a Lego City street scene that I've been working on for many years.
Yeah.
And we'll look at that a little bit later from some of the Instagram pictures. So that won for Best Town. I actually have quite a few of those for Best Town, because as I evolve my town, I bring in new buildings. And certain buildings have won an award just by themselves. I've won a Best Large award for a very large mock that I made. I've won a Best in Show. Which is probably the one I'm most proud of. And then I won a Best Other. So a particular mock that I worked on didn't necessarily fit in any of the categories that they were giving out awards. So it was that catch-all, other category.
Okay.
So, and as we go through some of the pictures here in a little bit, I'll point out some of those buildings that won for those awards.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. How did you come up with the name String Cheese and Applesauce?
So I've been on a lot of streams, and it's probably the number one asked question I get. So there is a little history behind it. Basically, before I was even on YouTube, I was experimenting with basically writing a blog,
Mm-hmm.
and what I wanted to do was have a name that was just so generic that I could almost write about any topic that I wanted. It wasn't necessarily related to anything. It was just, this is for my entertainment only type of thing, and it's going to have a goofy name that is associated with it.
Right.
So when I started YouTube, I did the same thing. I was like, oh, I'm done with that blogging thing. I'm going to create a channel, and it's going to have the same name, and I'm just going to do experimental Lego videos on there and see what sticks. I'm just throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
So, you know, I ended up finding stuff that actually worked, and I got a pretty big following on YouTube just from some of my random videos. And I tried, if you go years back on my channel, you'll see so many different types of videos.
Right.
They're all Lego related, but none of it really like fits together. It's just, I was just experimenting with videos.
Okay.
So I kind of found what worked, and then I created another channel. It's called The Hidden Brick. I don't know if a lot of people know about that.
Okay.
But the Hidden Brick channel actually has more subscribers and activity than StringCheese&AppleSauce does. And it's strictly, obviously, with the name Hidden Brick, it's related to Lego. And that's where I've been focusing a lot of my YouTube content, has been on that channel only. And you know, when I kind of realized you can make a little bit of money off of YouTube,
yeah,
I more or less wanted to hit those videos that got the most views and was able to, you know, generate a little bit of income, and it helped me support, you know, my hobby.
right.
You know, because I was getting, you know, a little bit of money every month.
Right.
And so it's like, well, I'm not going to mess around with these goofy videos anymore because they don't get me any money. I'll work on the Hidden Brick channel, and it'll get me a little bit of money.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, YouTube has kind of dived down, and people just don't make any money anymore.
Yeah.
And I've really been scaling back on all video production, just because the amount of time it takes for me to put a video together, it just, I don't see any return on it.
Yeah.
And any videos that I do now, it's just like, oh, if I'm doing this, I'm just gonna live stream it, or, you know, just do something real simple to where I'm not putting a lot of you know, kind of time into it. That's I'm not going to get anything out of it. And I don't want it to feel like, you know, I'm taken away from people, because I get a lot of comments on my videos. They're like, hey, where you at? I haven't seen you in a while. It's just, when I do a video, I'm like, look, I've been busy with conventions. I'm still actively involved with the Lego community. It's just not quite so much on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
so
tough.
the name, so to answer your question, the name, it kind of came over. It was an experimental name. It stuck because I started using it on my social media platforms and the YouTube, and it's to the point where it's people, like you said, people recognize it.
Yeah.
As hey, that's that goofy name for that Lego builder. So I just stick with it. It doesn't bother me at all. But I get the question quite a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely catchy, man. Or you know, it's a kid's bellyache.
yeah, for sure.
So how did you get into Lego?
Well, you know, as a kid, you know, back in the 80s, that was my toy of choice. But I did hit a dark ages in the you know, teenage years, when you're, you know, playing sports, and, you know, high school girls, you know the story.
Right.
But as I got older and started having kids, my oldest son kind of got me back into Lego. and it was a curious. It's kind of a funny story. We were at, I believe it was a Toys R Us. It may have been a Target, but
Mm-hmm.
it was some store, and we're walking down the Lego aisle, just looking for birthday gifts or something.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the toys, and I'm like, wow, that Lego set looks pretty neat. I don't remember that as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Having you look at it even closer, and you're like, wow, there's all these parts that move and all these different shapes and everything.
Right.
So I bought Lego for the kids, and then I bought one for me, just for fun, just to see.
Right. Right.
It was actually a Lego Technic set. That's
Okay.
kind of what got me back into it, was Lego Technic.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, this is actually pretty fun, because
Uh-huh.
I don't remember as a kid having any Technic sets. All of our stuff was like Lego Space
Yeah, just
or
straight
Lego City fire stations and stuff like that.
Right.
So I was like, oh, this Technic stuff is really cool. So I started buying a lot of Technic,
Okay.
and my Technic collection got really big really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a year into buying Technic, that's when I realized that there was other Lego sets, because I really just was like kind of just looking at Technic sets only.
Right.
But then when I started seeing like some of the other sets had, I was like, oh, I like that set because it has some Technic pieces in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started buying like a Ninjago set or something, because I saw that they used some Technic parts in their set.
Right.
And then when I bought it and built it, I was like, oh, these little brick pieces are actually pretty cool too. And then I started buying all the regular sets in addition to Technic. And now I pretty much just buy just the regular sets. I don't buy much Technic anymore at all, even though I still love Lego Technic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of that started about 7 years ago.
7 years ago. Okay.
That's yeah, I would say about 7 years ago. That's when I really got back into the Lego hobby.
Okay. Okay.
And I blame my kids.
Good pastime. Definitely good pastime.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think they like you said, they actually took the effort of blending both mediums. Like you got the regular brick,
Right?
and Technic brick, and so I mean,
Well, and as I
some of your builds.
Yeah, and as I started building more and more sets, I realized that they marketed certain sets to certain age groups because of the complexity of the parts that they used in them. So obviously stuff like Lego City is the simplest builds. And then you get into like the Ninjago or the Nexo Knights themes, and there's a lot of moving action pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is Technic, and some people struggle with that type of building. So it's marketed towards, that early teen type of demographic. And then and I've always made the joke, it's the gateway drug to Technic, those type of sets. Because it kind of introduces you to, a certain piece that creates all these different functions with the gears and the axles. And hopefully as the kids get older, they'll get more into Technic.
Yeah.
Or they'll hate it and just stick with, brick built type stuff.
Yeah. Much agreed. So you had a couple of dynamic builds, and that we're about to see. What's next? What you gonna build next?
So currently I'm working on basically building out some of the popular areas that are within the Fortnite game.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids are now like almost every kid in the world, they're all into Fortnite.
Okay.
And I've played the game quite a bit with them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not nearly as good, but they help me out as much as they can. And I'm familiar with a lot of the locations, and especially the popular locations within the game.
Right.
So I've started building kind of replicas of those areas that you find in the game. And it's definitely a pop culture style build where it's popular now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know how long it'll be popular. So I'm kind of jumping on the bandwagon, trying to build some of these popular builds that a lot of kids recognize. and we'll just see how long it lasts. I'll probably continue building them until it's not popular, or just until I get sick of them and move on to something else.
Right.
Another project that I've been working on is kind of like a cyber city, kind of a futuristic city.
Okay.
I've been experimenting with quite a few different building techniques, kind of preparing and kind of laying the roadmap for what eventually will be kind of my cyber city that will be easily transportable, kind of a modular type city that I can set up at conventions.
Yeah.
So I've started that. I've kind of done a proof of concept type model that like I like the proportions of it.
Right.
But what I need to do now is start the actual functioning model that I can start building onto and bring into the conventions.
Okay.
So those are my major projects that I'm working on right now. And then, you know, the never ending kind of organizing and sorting all the bricks and pieces.
Right.
I'm actually sitting pretty well right now. I only have a couple small bins of parts that are unsorted. So it really helps me with the build process, knowing where all my parts are and able to just grab them real quick.
Okay.
So when I am doing my builds, it's really, really easy because I am pretty well organized at this point.
Yeah.
I haven't always been, and it's been a struggle, but I'm real happy with where I'm at right now with organizing.
Good deal, man. I'm learning, man. I'm learning because it's burning me up right now. So I gotta get organized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, you belong into any Lego clubs at all?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm in the North Texas, Dallas area.
Right.
So I'm an active member in the DFW Lego user group. So it's just DFW Lug for short.
Okay.
And I've been a part of them for a couple years now, and you know, it's great being part of that group. You know, we meet once a month. We have a meeting tomorrow, so we're gonna just kind of discuss all of our upcoming shows and other events that we can be participating in. So there's a lot of stuff that happens around here, but it's kind of like little pop-up things. Like a school will be hosting like a technology night, and they just kind of ask, hey, can anyone from the Lug show up and set up some Lego or something? So there's really not a lot of conventions that happen in the Dallas area. And it's really unfortunate because it's such a huge metro area. But we do have quite a few opportunities to participate in other community style pop-up functions. So yeah, that's kind of what we do in our meetings. And then obviously we talk about some of the other shows that we have to travel to. And in a couple of weeks, when I meet up with the Brickfest Live people in Houston, I'm going to talk to them and try to convince them to do a show in the Dallas area, because it's really something that there a lot of people are missing out on.
Yeah.
It's such a huge draw, and if you hit the right, I guess, suburb portion of, you know, the Dallas area, you can draw, you know, thousands of people to these shows.
Yeah, that's a big mega area, of course.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's unique about your building process? What do you do different from other people?
It's hard to say because, you know, how do you get in the heads of other people? But I can kind of tell you my building process. So I have a background in architecture. So that's more or less my career is what I do is architecture style, you know, drawings and renderings and stuff.
Okay.
So my building style definitely leans more towards, you know, like the buildings, like an actual full scale representation of buildings.
Okay.
So what I do is I like to take a lot of images, like images of real buildings, and kind of use them as inspiration and try to mimic a lot of, you know, the details that I see in some of those buildings. And with my architecture background, I really understand proportions and kind of how architecturally a building should look.
Okay.
So a lot of the structures that I create, I may use images as reference, but that may just be for the details. I will actually use my knowledge and make the proportions look right. So a lot of that stuff to me kind of comes easy. And when I talk to people about it, they just kind of shake their head and they don't understand kind of what's going on, because it's hard for me to explain when you just get it. So and I really kind of give the credit to my background. It's not that the Lego pieces come easy, because no matter what you're building, you still have to find the right part to make the proportions look right. So that's where I struggle at times. It's like, oh, I need this to be a little bit taller, but unfortunately Lego door pieces are only this tall. So how am I going to make a door this much taller or this much shorter? So there's still challenges that come with it. But it's like in my head, I know how big I want something, and I'm not happy until it's the size that I want it, or like the width or whatever. So it kind of makes some of my builds get a little bit bigger, but it kind of hits that spot of satisfaction for me.
Okay. Now you mentioned architecture. You have any hobbies that influence your love for Lego?
No, not really. I mean, Lego truly is the hobby that takes up most of my time. Now, before I was into Lego, like when I was still in the dark ages, I did dabble a little bit into scale model trains.
Okay.
So I was doing a little bit of model train kind of railroading and stuff. But it was fun and all, but the problem with that is everything was like a plastic kit that you had to glue together.
Okay.
Once it was there was no changing it. And as we all know with Lego, you can build something, take it apart, rebuild it, take it apart, rebuild it. The flexibility with the bricks, so long as you don't glue them, obviously, is so much better than just a plastic model kit.
Okay.
So it really kind of made me drop the whole model train railroading stuff. And I really wasn't heavy into it. I really was more of a fan of it.
Yeah.
Than I was really actively, doing a lot of stuff. I just like models in general.
Right.
So, as a kid, I would build like little model car kits and model planes and model ships. And those little ones you had to glue with a little tube of Testor's glue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was into that as a kid, but now with Lego, you can almost do any model you want and then take it apart, do something else.
Right.
So a lot of my previous hobbies probably got me more into Lego than I say would influence me right now.
Oh, good deal, man. Good answer, man. I like that too, man. Like you said, that that was the tester models, all the models and stuff, like the you said that you had the cars and the planes and the kind of led you up to today's medium, I should say.
Yep.
So is building therapeutic for you? Is it your getaway, or you do this for fun?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's one of those things where, as with any hobby, you think of what a hobby is, and what it does is it kind of pulls you away from, the stress of, the day or the week or whatever, but yet it's still kind of challenging. It stimulates the mind. It's not like you're just sitting around and watching TV. You're actually thinking about stuff, but you're not thinking about what you were thinking about earlier today, at your job or something like that.
Yeah.
So I find it as a something fun to do that actually feels like you're being productive.
Right.
Even though you're just, sitting around playing with a toy, let's be honest.
Definitely well said. Has your love for Lego helped you persevere through any difficult situation? If it did, could you care to share?
I really can't think of anything that difficult that it
Right.
really got me through.
Uh-huh.
It's just been one of those things that's really snowballed to where it is today.
Okay.
Um, but I really wish it would have pulled my kids a little bit more into it. The kids, you know, as I started buying more and more Lego,
Mm-hmm.
the kids would like walk down the toy aisle and they'd be like, "Oh, that's cool. Dad already has that," or "Oh, dad already has that." So it really kind of numbed them to the
Ah,
excitement of the toy because
right.
they see it as a toy. They want to build the kit and play with the minifigures.
Uh-huh.
Whereas I look at it now and I'm like, oh, that has some cool parts. I'm gonna get that.
Right.
Look at this. Look at this new piece. Oh, I get 6 of them in this set. I'm gonna buy this set because I get all these new pieces.
Right.
So I look at them differently than the kids look at them, but at the same time, they're kind of numb from it.
Right.
So I would say that the disappointment is I wish they would be a little bit more excited about the Lego hobby as I am. And
Uh-huh.
who knows, they may in the future, but right now they'll come in here and play with the
Yeah.
Lego and I encourage them to,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't really happen that much.
Are you saying dad sucked all the fun out of Lego, huh?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It happens, man.
Well, and they have bins and bins of Lego in upstairs in their rooms and stuff.
Yeah.
They don't even touch them.
Uh,
I went up there and helped clean their room one day, and I was just like, "Throw it all in this bin. It'll be mine one day."
That's it. When
Just
you
put
move
it in
out,
there.
I think over your Lego.
And they're like, "Do you want us to put it in your room now?" I was like, "Nope, I don't want to sort it right now. You keep it in your room."
That's funny. What was your most? I want you to think about all your projects, right? And
Yeah.
what was your most difficult project? What was one that you had to actually put down and come back to?
Um, it was definitely my large mock that has the kind of the house bridge that goes between the two big mountaintops.
Uh-huh.
And we'll look at that one here in a little bit, and we'll talk about it more. But that was one that took me about 3 to 4 months to really complete.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely the vision. So that piece was based on a piece of artwork that I saw, and the artwork was way more, uh, I guess, fantasy themed than what I ended up building. Just based on the restrictions you really have with Lego.
Okay.
Um, so it was really just kind of an inspiration piece of artwork, and then I kind of put my own twist on it with what I built.
Okay.
But I started with the big house piece that went across the two mountainsides,
Mm-hmm.
and like most architecture stuff, that came pretty easy to me,
Okay.
and I was able to complete that within a couple weeks. The trick with that one was you're more or less creating a bridge, and it had to self-support itself.
Right.
So on the inside of that piece, it's actually a fully working truss type bridge.
Okay.
Has a lot of Technic pieces in it, and that thing is probably weighs 2 pounds, and it is solid as can be. I mean,
Jeez.
I don't want to do it, but you could probably stand on it and it won't break. It
Wow.
is it is solid.
I had a project like that in high school. Maybe you did
Yeah,
too, where they took the popsicle sticks and you had to make a bridge, and they took the vice principal and he stood on
yeah,
top of it
yeah,
to see. Yeah,
yeah.
kind of remind
So
me of that.
that's kind of what's in there.
Uh-huh.
And what you see on the outside is more or less just a veneer. It's just something that I just stuck bricks to it, just attach the bricks to the Technic bricks.
Right.
And the outside is just the skin, but the inside it's a strong, sturdy structure.
Wow.
And then the mountainsides were tricky because I wanted this inverted slope shape to
Mm-hmm.
kind of create this look of this house could fall at any time based on the way that this mountainside is.
Right.
So that one was tricky because as you build up with bricks, naturally they want to go in to self-support themselves.
Right.
I was going out, so I'm cantilevering bricks one at a time.
Okay.
It more or less wants to fall down at all times.
Ah,
So as I'm building layer by layer, I'm having to create tieback supports to hold that mountain up.
uh-huh.
And, you know, I test it kind of as I get, you know, maybe like 10 bricks high. I put some pressure on it and find the weak spots. I would break it down, rebuild it, do the same test over and over again.
Okay.
And those mountains, they really took me probably a good 2 months to fully build out.
Okay.
And a lot of that was the sculpting, getting the shape that I want,
Right.
in addition to making sure that it was structurally sound.
Okay.
Now, it looks cool all put together, but that thing does not travel well at all. I mean, when I get to a show, I have to rebuild a lot of it because it just still falls apart quite a bit.
Yeah.
But you know, the way it's designed, it breaks apart into 3 separate pieces,
Okay.
and it's the 3 separate pieces that are fragile.
Mhm.
Once it's all put together, that thing is solid as can be.
Okay. Oh, let me see. MLG Gaming giving you a shout out.
Yeah, he comments on a lot of my videos and my live streams, so it's a good guy.
Speaking of which, how important is the I would say the A fall community, but I mean T falls out there, K falls out there.
Yeah.
How important is the social media community to you and your builds?
I would say it's probably one of the best things for anyone,
Mhm.
you know, including me, but anyone out there that follows me or really follows anyone on social media. Mainly because, you know, it's so easy to get online or to get on Instagram or
Mhm.
Flickr or something and just start following all of these great builders
Mhm.
that do great stuff. Um, and I'll scroll through Flickr or through Instagram, you know, on a daily basis and tag certain pictures that I see.
Mhm.
Not necessarily that I'm necessarily going to build something that they're doing, but it's just like, whoa, that's cool. I want to save that for later.
Right.
And I'm sure people probably do the same for my work. But you know, I think that community is invaluable. I mean, just to see all of the great work that's out there.
Right.
And then I follow a good amount of YouTube builders. Probably not as many as I do on Instagram and on Flickr,
Okay.
but I'll look at their videos as well and just kind of get inspiration from.
Mhm.
But you know, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of my builds are unique because they're kind of like real world city type builds,
Right.
and there's just not a lot of people out there doing that.
Mhm.
A lot of people, you know, kind of take some of the um, you know, Lego modulars and double them, you know, and all they're doing is like putting them side by side. And to me, you know, it may be like what they like to do, but to me, that's not quite, you know, creative enough. So I'll kind of take it a little step further and actually break everything down and create a whole new building based
Okay.
on a Lego set or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's always fun. I mean, just like if you go to a convention, you can see everyone's stuff that they build,
Mhm.
and you get inspired by a lot of it.
Right.
But unfortunately, you know, the majority of the people across the country or the world, for that matter, can't attend a lot of these conventions.
Yeah.
So it's so easy just to get online and, you know, spend an hour or two just going down that rabbit hole and scrolling through and just looking at all kinds of cool stuff.
Right.
So I love it. You know, I think it's, like I said, invaluable for anyone. And if I ever hear anyone that's like, "Oh, I don't have Instagram," I'm like, "You've got to get on Instagram
Yeah.
and start following this hashtag, and you're just gonna get blown away."
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What was
And
your
that's the thing I love about Instagram that they've done recently is you can follow hashtags.
hashtags? Yeah, yeah. Just noticed that.
I follow more hashtags than I probably do people.
And that's probably the way to go too. So you, you can see what you want to see and not everything
Yeah,
else, right?
right.
Very true, man. I like that they did that too, because I mean, I actually ended up following more people over the hashtags because I didn't.
Right. Yeah. And if you see, yeah, you'll start seeing the same builder over and over again on the hashtag, and you're like, all right, I
Yeah,
just got to follow this one guy and check him out.
right, right. Yeah. What was your most memorable interaction you had with someone regarding your Lego hobby? Was that a convention, showing, or being a spectator?
Um, it's probably when I show stuff, um, you get all kinds of people, coming to your table and
Mhm.
making comments, and I would say 99% of it is positive stuff.
Okay.
But my most memorable one doesn't even relate to a mock that I'd made. It was actually, let's see, when was this? It was Philly Brick Fest 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I had my Lego City set up there,
Mm-hmm.
and in the whole like little street scene, I had just minifigures, just kind of populating the city.
Okay.
They're just doing stuff, random things, whatever. Well, one of the minifigures I had on there was a Star Lord minifigure
Mm-hmm.
from the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he had the other characters around him, whatever. They're just on the street doing something. I don't even remember. But this little girl came up to me and she's like, "Can I?" She's like, "Is that Star Lord?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's a Star Lord. He came out of a set, whatever."
Mm-hmm.
I was just I wasn't thinking about it. It's just, to me, it's just another minifigure, whatever. And she's like, "How much is it?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, I want to buy it." And this girl is probably like 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her dad was there, and I think he may have been the one asking me. He must have said, "Hey, how much is that minifigure?" And I told him, I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't sell any of my Lego. There's vendors, on that wall. Go check them out. I'm sure they have it. They have every minifigure.
Right.
Go find it." I just kind of like, "Shoo, get out of here," type of thing.
It's
I'm
mine.
not a vendor. I'm not selling you my stuff. So they're like, "Okay, thanks. We'll go check them out." And that was it. Well, about an hour later, they come back, and the little girl's just kind of looking, and the guy comes up to me, and he's like, "Hey, that minifigure, we went to every vendor, they don't have it." And I was like, "Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry." I was like, maybe go home and try Bricklink. I'm trying to help him,
Right.
giving him other ideas. I'm just like, I'm not, not that I didn't want the minifigure or I didn't want to sell it. It was just like, I'm here showing stuff. I'm not trying to sell anything.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So he wouldn't take that as an answer. He was just like, "How much?" He's like, how much do you think it'll go for on Bricklink?" And I was like, "I don't know. I mean, I don't buy minifigures on Bricklink. I have no idea." And I was like, maybe $10, maybe 15, maybe 20. I don't know how rare it is.
Right.
It could be a $3 fig. I have no idea. And he's like, "I'll give you 20 for it right now." And I was like, "I can't." I was like, "I can't." And the little girl sitting right there, and she's just kind of like getting sad, like little puppy dog eyes or whatever.
Right.
So I was like, "You know what? Come here." And I take the girl. So they have little stanchions in front of the tables. So I take her. I was like, "Come over here." I was like, so I take her under the table, and I bring her up to the city, and I was like, "Here, take the minifigure." And
Uh-huh.
she was like, "Well," and she had like money in her hand. And I was like, "No, no, no, keep your money. This is your minifigure." I was like, "You just remember, this event, and I just don't want you to go away, feeling sad or whatever." So I
Right.
was like, "It's yours. It's free. Don't worry about it." And she's
Right.
like, "Oh," she was so happy, and made her day. So she went off. Well, they stuck around, I guess, for the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was with me at that show, and I guess they came back later, like when I was off talking with someone else. and they were talking to my wife, and the guy was like, "Oh, thank you so much. That was so nice. He didn't have to do that. Yada yada yada."
Mm-hmm.
No big deal. I mean, to me, it's just a minifigure. I don't collect minifigures. You know, I definitely wasn't going to sell them. So I was just like, look, you obviously want it, so here, it's yours. Well, about 2 weeks later, after we, you know, had been back home and everything, I get a thank you letter in the mail from that little girl. She drew this huge picture. You know, she drew Star-Lord on the picture, and, you know, she was just so happy. And so he had gotten our address from my wife, like when I was walked away.
Yeah.
So that made me happy. And, you know, just out of curiosity, I went on Bricklink and realized it was like a $4 fig, and I just reordered it and put it back in my bin.
But you made a little girl's day, man.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was, you know, here's the problem with Lego conventions is it's a convention based around a toy, yet all of these kids that come to them are not allowed to touch the toys.
Yeah.
So, you know, they do set up little play areas and stuff, but they want to play with the cars that you have in your Lego city. They want to play with all the minifigures that are set up. They don't have a little area in the convention that there's a city set up with minifigures to, you know, do your whole imagination and set up your little scenes.
Right.
And when they see like my setup that has like the whole little thing there, they're like, oh, I want to touch it. I want to play with it. It's all ready to go. And, you know, as much as I am okay with someone touching it, it's like, if you let them touch it, then everybody wants to touch it. And then it's just going to be a madhouse. So it's kind of this balance of, no, you can't touch, but you look around, you're like, come over here. Come here. You touch it. You know, if no one's looking.
Right. No one's looking. It's okay. Yeah. That's an awesome story, man. That's gotta
so
be,
you know, that really, like I said, it doesn't really revolve around one of my builds, but it's definitely one of my most memorable ones.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's an awesome story. That's quite an impact, man. You know, and like you said, it's such a large event around toys and stuff, and you know, so it just, you know, you made a little girl's day, man. That's good stuff. Hey, folks, if you're just tuning in, my guest is String Cheese and Applesauce, aka Hidden Brick. I'm learning. He's dropping a whole lot of little Easter eggs. Look, I knew this guy twice. I didn't know him, you know. So,
you'll know me on Instagram as String Cheese and Applesauce.
That's it.
And obviously on YouTube.
Right. So this is the second half of the show. So they can't see you. They're not going to see me. They're just going to see the slide here. And we are going to look over String Cheese and Applesauce's builds, especially this one right here. All right, so I took a look on your Instagram, and you know, some of these came up. I think you start getting the Lego bug, because you were doing a lot of shopping on the Lego scene.
Yeah, you know, when definitely at the early stages of the hobby, when you don't have a lot of parts. You know, buying stuff on clearance was like, you know, exhilarating because, oh, you can buy 2 or 3 of the same set for the price of one, and you get all these cool parts. So I was kind of doing that Lego hunt where you search out the clearance stuff, and it was fun. But, you know, I quickly found that, you know, where I live, there wasn't a lot of stores that had a lot of clearance. I would have to go to, for lack of better words, the bad part of town to find some clearance Lego. So I kind of, this picture is good because I happened to find that Lego City set, like it must have been like 80% off. It was like $5 or something for that set. And I grabbed every one they had. Some people would call it a swoop nowadays.
Yeah.
So I took everything, but, you know, I don't really do that much anymore because, you know, my parts supply is pretty well full of most everything I need. So I'm pretty selective with a lot of stuff that I buy. But, you know, at the time, you know, the Lego Ideas exosuit was cool. I grabbed a couple of those. I, I think everyone had Chima on clearance, so
Oh yeah, Chima. You get mad, you get Chima in the mail.
yeah, yeah. I didn't care for the Chima figs, but I really liked the builds because they used a lot of Technic in them.
Right.
And like I mentioned earlier, that was kind of my gateway back into the Lego hobby. So I appreciated some of the builds of Chima, but not necessarily those kind of animal figs, whatever.
Oh yeah, they were kind of weird, a little bit weird. But you
Yeah,
made
and
parts
that's
out
the
of them though.
turtle. That's the turtle that was in the exosuit.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's
I th- I'm pretty sure that's the way it came. I may have added some extra stuff to it.
hmm And it's like rarely simple, but I mean, just
Yeah.
you knew exactly, you know exactly what it is.
Well, yeah, and my early days of Instagram, I was building more sets than I was mocks.
hmm
So same with this Joker steamroller. I really
Right.
liked the way that they brick built that mouth with the lips and the teeth.
Yeah, yeah,
So I felt it was appropriate to share on Instagram. I was like, I really like this clever little build.
right. And I see, like, even then, like, like I'm looking at it now, and a lot of stuff that you bought it's very classic today.
Yeah. I was definitely buying a lot of the I guess at the time they were just kind of, oh, we're sick of seeing these sets, but then 3 years later people are like, oh, I wish I had that set. And I was like, well, wasn't it 3 years ago you were sick of seeing that set?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
So
here,
this is an interesting piece because this is when my parts collection was getting to the point to where I could actually start doing some mocks.
okay.
And I at the time was buying some Monster Fighter sets,
hmm
and there was a very very small set that had a little swamp creature in it, and a little like looked like a quarter of a tree piece in it.
Okay.
And I was like, oh yeah, I can just make a 32 by 32 swamp scene and populate it with this guy. So this was kind of the beginnings of that swamp scene. So this is, like I said, the very early stages of me doing mocks, and I'm really experimenting with, you know, building something without instructions,
hmm
really kind of figuring out how how to make something larger scale than what you see in a Lego set.
Okay.
And you can see that with the trees. The trees that I build nowadays do not look anything like what you see in that picture, and it kind of makes me sick looking at that one because I would never build a tree like that anymore. But you have to start somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't just start building and be a master builder out of the gate. So
Yeah.
like I said, this was really me just really kind of breaking that barrier of, okay, I want to create something on my own.
Okay.
um, so unfortunately this one never really got completed
Okay.
because, like I said, it was one of the first ones and I'm really just kind of messing around playing with it. And I really think what happened was, like some of my mocks, if I run out of a particular piece that I'm trying to use,
hmm
sometimes I'll just rage quit and disassemble the model. But I think what happened on this one was it was past Halloween, and I was like, "Oh, it's Christmas time. We're not going to mess with that anymore."
Right. Right.
Yeah, and that's another the Monster Fighter stuff. So in our in the house that I'm at now, um, I had a lot of these Monster Fighter sets before we moved into this house.
Uh-huh.
So I disassembled them all before the move. And then when we moved in, I was starting to reassemble them all.
Okay.
And I remember this because I had disassembled them and put all of the parts in baggies based on what set they came out of. So it
hmm
was kind of easy to build. You just take the instruction book out and rebuild it. So this is just one of the Monster Fighters cars. But as I rebuilt it, it was like, oh yeah, this is fun. I like Lego.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then obviously the Monster Fighters Vampire Castle.
Oh man, that castle's awesome, man. I bet you
Yeah.
a lot of people want that castle in their collection now, man.
Yeah, so right now, it's getting closer to Halloween, so this is one of the few Lego themes that I keep put together year round.
Hmm.
We just box it up and put it up on a shelf in a closet.
Yeah,
So it's sitting out in our dining room on a little table right now, all of the Monster Fighter stuff.
yeah.
And I add random stuff. Like last year I built a little graveyard scene next to the Monster Fighters haunted house.
Okay.
This year I built a like this big tree that has all the leaves that are falling off. So it's basically just this huge skeleton tree
Yeah.
of limbs and stuff.
Hmm.
So I just kind of do like little random small little builds like that. And a lot of times I don't post much of that on Instagram. It's just, oh yeah, this took me 10 minutes to build. I'll just throw it out there.
Right. And it just like I see that your hobby has evolved, because like sets like that, you can always you can always add more.
Right. Yep. So this was a fun little project. It was actually the first building that was being built for my fully custom Lego City
Okay.
mock.
Mm-hmm.
So my intention was, when I started getting into more and more mocks, I noticed a lot of people were doing Lego cities. And what bothered me about the Lego cities that were being built was that it was a lot of Lego sets.
Mm-hmm.
They would just build the set and then just plop it down in their Lego city and say, "Hey, new building." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, so now everyone's Lego city looks exactly the same."
Right.
So my intention from day one was to create a fully custom Lego city
Mm-hmm.
based on the Lego modular building kind of floor, I guess, template.
Mm-hmm.
So they in theory can all interlock side by side. I don't lock them together, but in theory they could.
Yeah.
So this was the very first building that I was building based on that concept of a fully custom city. And today it's still probably one of my favorite ones because
Mm-hmm.
I love the color scheme. I love the proportions of it. Unfortunately, it's very unstable because, like I said, it was one of my very first ones. So it does fall apart pretty easily.
Okay. Okay.
So it's one of those mocks that is on my list of when I get time or I want something fun to work on, I'm gonna completely overhaul it and
Yeah.
make it more stable.
Okay.
Because over time I've learned new techniques and I can improve this building quite a bit.
Okay. Some rentals. Some rentals. Now, let me ask you this. Did you find that, like, creating your own buildings for your city actually saves a lot of room into your city, so you can put more in versus just putting the, like the sets, building the sets, and then just putting them into your city?
No, the sets would actually, I feel, take up less room.
Okay.
The building the custom one actually takes up more room
Okay. Okay.
because I like the proportions of the wider building.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a building, the most recent one that I have in my city takes up a 32 wide and a half. So it's actually really, really wide.
Okay.
It takes up even more room. But to me, it looks right.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of real estate it takes up doesn't bother me,
Okay.
so long as the proportions look right.
Yeah.
But if I was to do a Lego set, that it would look so out of place because unfortunately the Lego sets are designed for playability
Yeah.
and not quite for scale representation of an actual building.
Mm-hmm.
So while a kid may enjoy, turning it around and, oh, great, the building is already cut in half for me, I can just reach right in here and play with it. To me, that doesn't work for my template as far as my Lego city.
Okay. Okay. Now, this building here, any particular inspiration on it? Is it an actual building?
So if you look at almost any um, I guess what you would call any town, downtown USA,
Yeah.
especially like a small town.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every single one of those towns has a building that looks just like this,
Yeah.
where it has some sort of shop or storefront on the bottom floor, and then above it there's smaller windows that are kind of equally spaced across the whole facade.
Right.
And that's where it would house like a lawyer's office or some sort of art studio or something. um, who knows what it was in the 1920s or 30s or whenever they were built.
Right.
Nowadays they're kind of repurposed into like a boutique shop at the first floor, and then a small little studio space on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just pulling from a lot of that standard any town downtown USA that you just see that type of building.
Yeah.
And I've thought about making more like this,
Mm-hmm.
and making it look like it was converted into like a club or a bar or a coffee shop or something. But it's just kind of one of those things that like I said, I work on other projects as well, and there's only so much time to get onto it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I agree. And which is great because like your whole city, your city line is has like a lot of variety in it. So it's
Right. Yep.
one theme.
So you can see that completed building off to the left, and right here, what we're looking at is the the next building that I started working on.
Mm-hmm.
And this one I struggled with because I wanted to create a bank. So I have this kind of general retail shop on the left side. So now every city has a bank. So I'm going to create this bank.
Mm-hmm.
And I used quite a few pictures of real, old style banks to try to use as inspiration.
Okay.
So this kind of was the starting point, and it was fun. I liked the way the steps went up, so it had like a raised floor,
Right.
and everything was raised. You have these kind of monumental columns there, so I like the way it started. The problem with this one is I didn't really care for the color scheme of it.
Okay.
So as we see, I ended up building it up pretty high before. This one ended up not making it very long in my city.
You took it out.
Yeah, because the color scheme wasn't there for me. I really wanted more of an earth tone color,
Okay.
and then I really hated the way the top of it just looked like a castle. So I was just like, nope, I'm not gonna make this one fly.
Okay.
So I eventually redid the bank, and I think you have a few pictures. We'll look at that here in a little bit.
Yep.
This one was a fun little one. So I really love these little 16 wide buildings,
Mm-hmm.
because you like I said with the one right next to it, this is a style building you can see in almost any old school downtown. Just the real narrow storefront, and then a 2 or 3, sometimes even a 4-story building on top of it.
Right.
So this was when I started playing with some different color schemes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see I'm pulling in the nougat colored masonry profile brick, and then some reddish brown, and I really like that dark green color on the first floor.
Mm-hmm.
So this building is actually still alive in my Lego city to this date.
Okay. And you can mess around and probably build a whole bunch of them. I mean, because you're like that 16, that's 16 wide.
Yep.
You save some space.
And I think the one you're looking at here, that one building with the dark green there, I think this was the first version of it, because I ended up rebuilding it on an actual 16 by 32 base plate.
Okay.
And the proportions that I rebuilt it in are a little bit taller than what we see here. So this one is kind of like your version 1, and the version 2, which looks very similar to this, it's just a little bit taller, is the one that's still alive in my city.
Okay.
So we have the Lego store right there, the pick-a-brick wall.
Yeah, you had to pick a brick wall before it was in the bag.
Yep. So that was I think I was on a Saturday stream,
Okay.
and they were doing a little live build competition,
Mm-hmm.
and it had to revolve around the Lego store for some reason.
Okay.
I may or may not recall it. So this one was really cool. Like we literally had like an hour to come up with something. So I just started going at it. So obviously, if you've ever been in a Lego store, you have those circular bins
Yes.
that are on the wall, and of course they have all the parts in them.
Yes.
And then there's that little counter that's right behind it, and that's where you have your cups. So that's what those trans clear pieces represent,
Right.
is the
Right.
pick-a-brick cups.
Right.
And then if you've ever been in a Lego store during normal operation hours, some kid will fill a cup and drop the whole thing on the floor, and there's parts everywhere. So that's what's on the floor of that
Yeah.
mock right there.
Looks like a real Lego store.
Yep. Yep. So I don't know what ended up happening with that. I think they were trying to like do a little award or something, but
Yeah.
I was just having fun.
Yeah, they need to bring back those shows that you see a lot of. I miss. Well, you can always go back and watch them, but you want to watch some new stuff.
Yeah. So this was a fun little build because this was one of the first ones that I focused on the interior
Okay.
of the first floor. So that's a little bakery shop.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was buying a lot of Lego Friends sets because they had excellent pieces in them, and a lot of those pastel colors.
Right.
So you can see on the floor, I've got that pink and kind of a light blue colored pattern.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have been able to do that very easily if I didn't have a lot of those Lego Friends sets.
Yeah.
And then I pulled a lot of inspiration from those sets for a lot of the food items and the drink items that you see in there.
Okay.
And then I really wanted that awning shape. And then, I try to get, various details on the front facade of the building. So I was, we're kind of seeing a evolution here of my building techniques where I'm doing more and more detail work.
Right.
Whereas that first building, it was just like straight up bricks. I was just stacking them up, and it looked cool and all. But as we look at this one, even on that second floor above the windows, I'm just trying different stuff to create different details.
Right. Yeah,
So
you definitely tell that you're getting stronger as you're going. Yeah.
right, yeah, and that's why I encourage a lot of people, if they're not comfortable building mocks. I mean, you really have to just start building something, and you'll eventually get better and better. So this one, that sand green brick color at the top
Mm-hmm.
ended up not staying. I ended up redoing that one.
Okay.
I just didn't like the way that looked together.
Okay.
So that color scheme went away, but the bottom stayed the
Yeah.
same, and I redid the top. And the picture right there, you can see I have that sand green still in that one. But if we look at the more modern or the current pictures of my city,
Yeah.
like it doesn't look like that way anyway. So, this, once again, this is a great picture that shows the evolution of the city. You can see I started integrating some streetscape.
Right.
So I've got some planters that brings a little bit of life to the street, as well as some of the trees, and then some benches, and obviously the Lego road base plates help a ton because you can then start to put cars and stuff on them.
Right. Yep. Add into your city. Yep.
Yeah, so those type of things add. I mean, they're pretty simple little details, but they add so much scale and life to the city, which would otherwise just be plain buildings.
Right. Very true. Very true.
And that's what I hear a lot about in at conventions when I show my city. They're like, "Wow, there's just so much life, so much happening on the city."
Yeah, you got it. I mean, 'cause like you figure, like in a city, you can have a view of 360. You can't be
Yeah.
one dimensional. And like you figure
Right.
when you go to a Lego show, I mean, your whole setup has to be 360.
Yep, for sure. So this one is based on the Lego Creator Bike Shop set.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that set. It came out, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. So what I ended up doing was I found a couple of those sets on clearance. I bought, maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
And by then I was accumulating a good amount of extra parts. So this was my first run at, hey, I'm going to double the size of this creator set and make an actual full building of it.
Okay.
So you can see it looks really, really close to the actual Lego set. I think from what you see here, I took it apart. So this doesn't exist anymore. This was just something that I was just like, if I can recall, and I may be mistaken, what I may have done was just open like all 3 of the sets at one time and dumped all the parts out.
Right.
And I challenged myself just to double the size of the buildings using just the parts that I dumped out.
Okay.
So I'm not going to use any of my spare parts. So there was a lot of concessions made in this build.
Like,
you see the one on the right looks very squatty.
okay.
And I do not like that at all because real buildings, have some height to them.
Right.
The one on the left is a little bit taller, but it's still kind of squatty to me. So I ended up taking these apart and using additional parts from my collection and rebuilding a couple buildings that were kind of based on this style of building.
Okay. Okay.
But still, it was a fun build challenge for me where I was trying to use a restricted amount of parts.
Right. And see how far you can get. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So this tall gray building is the replacement for the bank.
Okay. Okay.
That white bank is at this point been disassembled, and this guy has taken its place.
Okay.
And this one is designed to where that middle dark bluish gray portion I can basically build multiple layers of that exact same piece and just stack them on almost like a modular building.
Yeah.
And make this like a skyscraper style building.
Okay.
So I purposely designed it that way because at the time I only had enough parts to make what you see here. But I knew over time I would probably get enough parts to continue to make this taller.
Right.
So it was kind of like at this point of me doing mocks, I'm now starting to really plan them out as far as what can this be and how can I break it down? How can I transport it? At this point I've gone to a convention or two. I've kind of worked out some of those things of, if I'm going to bring this to a convention, I can't just drop this tower inside of a box. I need to actually break it down and make it portable.
Right.
So I start now planning out my mocks a little bit different to make sure that they're not only look good, but they're functional as far as traveling.
Right.
So unfortunately, the state that this building is in right now, which I still put in my Lego City, it's it hasn't gained any levels at all. It still looks just the way you see it right here.
Okay.
Even though it's designed to get taller.
And it's not bad because you're using a variety of bricks here. You're not just using the masonry bricks. You got the modified plates on here. You got the modified bricks on here, and you got the cones up top. So you got you got all these elements on the front side.
Yeah, and once again, that's just really showing the evolution of my building style. How I'm, just incorporating more and more detail pieces to where I think about it a little bit different.
Good deal. Good deal.
So here, this is a good shot of almost fully complete street scene.
Right.
So obviously, that you can see the bakery right there in the middle, how that upper floor has now been changed. That sand green is gone.
And green is gone. Yep. Yep.
We have a Lego store. You can see the little sign above the little Lego store. It's a couple buildings down.
Right.
But what's different about this than what we saw in the previous one is the amount of streetscape. So we've got more trees. They're getting larger for scale purposes. We've
Right.
got street lamps. We've got fire hydrants. We've got benches. We just have all of this stuff that really adds that element of life to the street scene.
Right. Right.
And I really see that a lot at the conventions where kids will be looking at this, and it almost looks scale realistic to where they're just looking at all the minifigures. They don't even acknowledge that there's buildings back there because it just looks natural.
Right. It looks natural. Yeah. It blends
Yeah,
right
so
in.
they're just looking at, oh, look at that car, look at that person riding the bike, look at that, guy selling the hot dogs. That's all they see.
Right.
They're looking at the activities going on in the street. And then the adults, they're like, whoa, look at that building. That looks good. They're looking at something completely different than what the kids are.
Right.
So it really has turned into something that appeals to kind of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I never would have thought that when I first envisioned this, city scene that I was more or less creating.
Right.
I was more or less doing it for the buildings. That's my whole purpose. That's what I enjoyed out of it.
Yeah.
But then when I start to see the kids enjoying the actual street scene, then it makes me pay a little bit more attention to that.
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely got something for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Your roof detail is awesome. Not one roof look like the other, man. It's like you got different techniques going on.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where I try to make them look different, even though and I've done this, I'll use like a Google Street View and I'll go down, real streets.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the old style buildings, they all almost look exactly the same as far as their roof detail.
Right.
So what I'm doing is a little bit different than real world, but it kind of brings that level of enjoyment to me to where, I'm doing something a little bit different. Because I could easily make the same roof detail, but it would be boring to me.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So what exactly happened here?
So that is obviously the Lego modular town hall building. It's one of the few. It's actually the only modular building that I have still put together. But that is somehow that building made it into our bedroom. So it's sitting on one of our dressers in our bedroom, and my wife decided to just hang her jewelry on there each night when she took off her necklace or did whatever. Like there's even like a little medal on there. She ran like a 5K or something and just hung it up there. But it just started collecting all of that, all of that.
Accessories.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
At the time, it was a little crazy right there, but currently it's all cleaned off, and I really need to get that building out of there and take it apart because it has some cool parts in it. I like that dark red color.
And that's awesome, man. Like you would take an out of circulation set like that, break it down and use it for its parts, and that way you spread it throughout your city. Most people would be glued to that set and wouldn't budge and breaking it apart.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the minorities where I don't get glued into a set. I have no problems taking apart an old set and using the parts for something else.
Right.
So this is the we had looked at the bike shop expansion that I tried, a couple pictures ago. Well, when I took it apart, this is what actually became of those buildings.
Okay.
So this is the full using my parts and adding on more stuff,
right?
Making them taller. this is what I ended up doing for them. Now that middle one, I don't know if I made that one a little bit taller or not, but that one looks kind of out of place for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But the two that are kind of bookending it, those are currently still in my Lego City.
And you can see it has so much more ebb and flow now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the proportions are right. And like I said, that's kind of what I strive for, is making it look a little bit more proportionate
Mm-hmm.
versus squatty, and it's I don't really care for that look. So
Right.
the taller, especially with these skinny buildings,
Mm-hmm.
the taller you go with them, the better they look.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can do a wide building and only, make it a two-story building, and it looks just fine.
Right.
But these skinny buildings look better when they're taller. And you could think of like the pet shop style building, the modular pet shop.
Yeah.
That was two 16 wide buildings, but they're 3 stories. And then
Right.
you have to walk up some steps just to get to the first level on the apartment unit. So they're pretty tall buildings.
Right.
They look great proportion wise.
Definitely.
That's kind of what I go for on these buildings, is taller.
And-
That's why that one in the middle looks funny to me. It's like, that should be another level tall.
But it wouldn't even be that bad because you put your signature, which is the roofing.
Yeah.
Not one roof looks the same. So, and you're definitely putting your signature on this piece.
Yeah. So I did try to dabble in some of the Lego trains for a little bit,
Okay.
and this was my first go at a very small, um, I guess just a train station.
Mm-hmm.
What you would see it like in a small town, probably in the late 1800s.
Right.
It was a little bit tricky because as you notice with a lot of my other buildings, they're more or less just flat roofs. And this one was the first attempt at a sloped roof. And not only was it sloped at the top, but it had a lower sloped roof that went all the way around it.
Okay. Yes.
So it was tricky. I definitely have learned more about sloped roofs from the time that I built this.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I mean, you got to start somewhere. So this was kind of my first stab at doing a little train station.
Okay. Too bad.
I think I still have that built, but I don't know where it's at. It's in a bin somewhere.
So you got a buddy helping you with your builds, huh?
Yeah, that's Dexter. He's our Siberian cat, and he's a full bred Siberian. So during the winter, he just thickens out,
Okay.
where he's got that big lion's mane of a coat.
Right.
So right now he's pretty, yeah. So in that picture, that was taken a couple weeks ago. So he's very thinned out there.
Uh-huh.
He loses all of his hair in the summertime. But no, he's one of those cats that will follow you around and just kind of hang out just to make sure that that he's ignoring you. That's about all he does. But he loves to lay on or sit in any of my Lego builds. He thinks that they're little beds for him.
That's pretty cool.
So if I ever see him, I always just try to snap a picture of him.
All right, so tell us what you got here. This is magnificent.
So this is a couple buildings from the Fortnite video game.
Mm-hmm.
There's a small town in the game. It's called Tilted Towers, and it's one of the more popular towns that when you spawn into the game, that a lot of people like to jump into and kind of start the game.
Okay.
So it's a cluster of about, I want to say about 12 buildings that are in this little town.
Mm-hmm.
And these are two of them. And they're nicknamed the L's because if you look at the top, they're kind of shaped like the letter L.
Right.
Capital L.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both connected with this little bridge. And then there's a little courtyard in front of it. And basically around the buildings, it's just sidewalks. It's really, there's really not a lot of detail to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at this and hold it right up next to a picture of the actual buildings in the game, it's uncanny how exact it looks. It looks almost just like it.
Yeah.
And I built a clock tower as well. It's another one of the buildings in that town.
Okay.
The clock tower won an award for that was the best other award that I recently won,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I said, it's really like a pop culture build. It's just something that's popular right now.
Right. Yeah.
So what we have is that little tree. There's a llama in the tree,
Mm-hmm.
and if people have played the game, they're familiar with it. The llamas are pretty rare, but they spawn randomly through the game, and you can bust them open and get pretty good loot, where
Okay.
you can upgrade your weapons and get shield potions and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
uh, potentially destroy everyone in the game. And then part of the game is building up little ramps and walls to get to higher elevations.
Right.
So what you're seeing with those reddish brown pieces, and it's pretty goofy in the game. You could just build a ramp up with no support underneath it, and you can just build it up high into the sky.
Right.
So that's kind of what I built there. It's just I have some clips and some of the plates with the little bars on it. And I just clipped them in place to where it looks like it's just a ramp just going up into the building.
Okay. Okay.
But at Tulsa, when I brought this was the first time that I showed it at that convention.
Mm-hmm.
And for sure, every single kid that walked by was kind of like, "What is this? Wait, this is no, yes, this is Fortnite. This is Fortnite." And really, what gave it away was that llama.
The llama. Yeah.
They recognized that, but then it was kind of like as soon as they saw that, like everything started triggering, and you can just see it on their face. They're like, "Oh, that's the ramp. Oh, that's the building." And they're like, "This is the else. This is Tilted Towers," and they just lost it at that point. I had the clock tower sitting right next to it in the
Right.
table, and they're like, "Oh, look, and that's the clock tower." And I had put out a lot of accessories. I don't know if you pulled one of those pictures or not, but I had the street lamps and a lot of the loot chests. I put a lot of stuff around it to where once the kids realized what it was, they were just going nuts over it.
Yeah.
And the parents were like, "Okay, whatever you say." Like they had no idea what they were talking about.
The kid jumping up and down. Look, look, look.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it was definitely a hit with the kids, and that's the whole purpose of that build is I wanted the kids to just go nuts over it, and it was definitely a mission accomplished.
Oh, that's cool, man. And that's what that is about. That's the real award there, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the very beginning of the it's what I eventually called the Gone Fishing mock.
Okay.
So this is the I was kind of working out the proportions of that big house bridge that connects between the two mountainsides.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see I'm working on the veneer and the windows and trying to figure out how that would work. But you can see on the inside there's those Technic frame pieces.
Right.
And then around the whole perimeter, I mean, you're just seeing those gray pieces exposed, but around that whole perimeter, you can kind of see it on the dark bluish gray pieces right below it.
Right.
That's all Technic bricks around that whole perimeter. And you can kind of see it's a little dark, but you can see a friction pin sticking out on the left.
Yeah, I see it.
So that was the beginning of this, and this was really just working out proportions.
Mm-hmm.
You can see I have my little bin kind of off to the back with all of my Technic pieces.
Right.
Really just kind of knowing, I mean, we're at the stage of my mock building to where I'm really planning it out in my head, and I know not only what I want it to look like, but I also understand that I need it structurally sound to actually make it to a city via transporting it somehow.
Right.
And then this was kind of the first draft at laying out some rock work. As you can see right behind it, I have the bridge part, and I'm more or less using it as a guide for width purposes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure the mountains were wide enough. But then what I'm also doing here is kind of trial and error, trying to figure out how I want these rocks to look. So it didn't end up the way you see it here. This was definitely a first draft at everything.
Okay.
But it was one of those things that it had to happen just to kind of put 2 and 2 together. So yeah, this is a good shot of definitely early stages of this project. And this is that massive project that took 3-4 months to complete.
Right. Right.
So here, this is another great picture where we see, I've kind of playing with the rock work. I'm disassembling some stuff. I've got random pieces scattered throughout. But what's great is you see the progress of that little house bridge, and you can see all of the Technic pieces that are in there. To where I have the studded Technic pieces, then I have the non-studded Technic lift arm type pieces in there.
Okay, yeah.
And they're all interlinked from the bottom all the way to the top. And then once you start putting plates throughout there, I mean, that thing is solid as a rock.
Right.
And really what I wanted. I mean, I can at the time, at the stage you see it right there, I was able to grab one of those rectangular Technic brick frames. Basically by 2 fingers, I could hold that thing, shake that whole piece, and absolutely nothing would fall off. It is. I was really, really pleased at how well that thing came together, and it's really all because of those Technic pieces.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the Technic knowledge that I had.
Yeah, and see, like you kind of brought your love for Technic back into your love for Lego, and you're starting to blend it into your builds now. So at this point, you're in your master stages big time. So
right. So this picture is showing really the final stages of it being complete. At the time, this mock was being debuted at Brickworld Chicago in 2017. So what I was doing was I was doing a lot of close-up pictures, kind of teasing the completion of it.
Okay.
So this one was a real close-up of just that little balcony that was, obviously on a bridge, and this guy just dropping a line down, but you don't know why he's doing that. So It was really just a teaser image. And then a lot of the greenery on the mountains wasn't complete at this time.
Okay.
So you can see I had started to sprinkle in a little bit here and there, but I wasn't really pleased with it because I really wanted it almost to have a forest feel.
Right.
And at the time, it really kind of felt kind of like a swamp feel. So I was really working on adding a lot of more greenery to the build. So this picture really hides a lot of that. And this one shows one evening I was just working on the greenery.
Right.
So, just chilling, drinking a beer, and building up that greenery.
Definitely about the details, man. I think this thing is great, man. So you got
this. So this was the completed model. So like I said before, I really wanted those mountains to be like that inverted slope. So it's real wide at the bottom and it narrows as it goes towards the top. And what that does is it gives it this illusion of that house bridge really being very unstable. It looks unstable, but the way it's built with all the Technic pins and everything holding it together, very, very stable. It's actually creating almost like a keystone effect. Like if you build a stone arch and you put that keystone at the very top, it actually holds everything together.
Right.
So that's what that little bridge piece is actually making it stronger. But visually, it looks pretty dramatic, to where it looks like, if you move one piece, this whole thing's going to fall, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not. It's so strong. You can also see that I've definitely added a lot more of that greenery, kind of made it feel softer and
Uh-huh.
less rocky, even though it is meant to kind of have this mountainous feel. And then the concept behind this, what I wanted it to do was to have a sense of something is about to happen. So this guy is dropping a line, and
Okay.
there's this you know morphed or some sort of alien type shark coming out of the water.
Yeah.
And the idea is it's left open for interpretation for, is this guy actually fishing for a shark, or is he reeling in his fish that he caught and the shark is going to steal his fish? And if so, is he going to pull the guy in? There's just so much that could happen. And you kind of sense that with some people that look at it, they're just like, whoa, what's going on here? Something crazy is about to happen.
Right, right. It's an
And
open-ended. Yeah.
yeah, so being just a standalone build, unlike the city where you can add a lot of people and create, little imaginary storylines,
Right.
this is a standalone piece that is meant to, open your mind to something's about to happen. And I really feel that it's accomplished pretty well. And I've actually heard people say stuff like that. They're like, "Oh man, he's gonna get pulled in, or he's not gonna be able to reel him in." So um, it's interesting hearing people's thoughts on it.
Yeah.
But it's a showstopper. I was at a show, um, I think it was late last year, and there was this guy walking by, and he's pushing a stroller. He
Hmm.
looks like he's having the worst day of his life. He didn't want to be at that Lego convention. He's obviously there for the kids,
Right.
but he wanted to be at home watching football or doing something else. He just looked miserable. And he's walking by, and he stops, and he looks at this, and he goes, "That's pretty cool." And then he just starts walking off again. So I was just like, all right, mission accomplished. I got even the grumpiest person
They
to
didn't
actually
want to be
stop.
there. There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that mock won an award for best large, because it is pretty large. It stands about 2.5 feet tall,
Okay. Okay.
and those are two 64 by 64 base plates at the bottom.
Wow.
So it's pretty wide.
Yeah.
So this is like a little sneak peek of what it looks like, um, kind of before I assemble it.
Right.
So you can see the mountainsides split apart, and I designed it like that on purpose for travel,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the house part is just connected. You can see that row of Technic pinholes on both sides of the mountain.
Right.
Those little brackets that you see hanging off the side of the mountains,
Hmm.
what looks like wooden arches,
Right.
those are purely decorative. It actually doesn't even touch the bottom of the house, but visually it looks like it's like some sort of supporting truss.
Right. Right.
So I made those
By
just for the look of it.
yeah.
And those pinholes, there's a ton of pins on both sides of the house that go into those pinholes. So
Yeah.
that's what's holding it together. Those little supports are just for the look of it.
Right.
So, like I said, I mean, we're really seeing kind of the evolution of my building to where I'm adding those type of details that really have no effect to the actual structural stability of the model. It's just for looks only.
Yeah, just for the looks. Yeah, definitely, man.
And then, obviously all the greenery. When I travel with this, I have to take all of that off, all those trees and stuff,
Hmm.
because they'll all get knocked off. So every time I set this up, I have to place every single piece on there one by one. It's pretty tedious, but the end result is pretty nice.
Yeah. Man, that is massive.
Yeah. That's another shot of it.
All right. See here. So I look on Instagram one day and I see this magnificent build. No one has anything like it, man. So tell me what inspired you to do it. I mean, how did you develop it?
So probably similar to you. I've looking at other people's Instagrams and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and what I what I started to see was a lot more, um, I guess, I don't know what you call it, like decomposed buildings,
Mm-hmm.
or old buildings that are falling down, or have weathered over time. So what I wanted to do was to try to play with different styles of building to kind of get that look of a older building.
Okay.
Um, and then what I started to do was play with other details. You can see we've got that large downspout going down the side, and then we kind of
Right.
have this side alley type of detail going on the side.
Right.
And then this was also when I started playing with the idea of the kind of the future cyber city. So not only am I playing with kind of like a decomposing building type of style,
Right.
I'm also playing with some architectural styles that are more, I guess, sci-fi or futuristic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with the translucent, signs, and then on the bottom floor we have those trans orange windows,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got some droid arm type pieces that are still create like the styles that I'm used to building. I'm just using different parts to create that.
Right.
So this was truly just an, an experimental mock where I was just playing with different building techniques just to see what'll happen. And it just so happened when I got to the second floor and started playing with that light bluish gray bricks and details, I was like, well, what am I going to do for windows? And I look at, my windows I have on hand, and, I was like, well, I have all these blue windows.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, if I use a blue window, will it look right with this? And I was like, oh, you know what is gray and blue is classic space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could see it really takes that feel of a Lego classic space vehicle.
Yeah.
And that's a good detail of the other side of the building, where I threw in a little power meter. You've got your kind of rubble ground, either it's cobblestone or it's, concrete that's falling apart.
Right. Right.
And you got some random crates and barrels stacked on the side. I really like the way that you have the solid gray bricks, and then you've got the light bluish gray masonry bricks,
Mm-hmm.
to where it looks like part of the, the plaster or whatever that wall was has kind of been scraped off, and you see the actual structural bricks behind it.
Right.
So it's, it was really starting to, because if you look at my Lego city as a whole, it looks very clean, like brand new buildings. And I was like, oh, well, what if I make a building that's not brand new?
Right.
What if I make one that looks like it's been here for 80 years and it's falling apart? So that's really what the whole purpose of this build was. And it's a standalone building. It doesn't fit in with any other thing that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't get a lot of attention when I put it out at a convention.
Okay.
People just kind of look at it and walk by, which, to me, that's fine, because I don't really have any context built around it.
Okay.
I don't really ever put people around it or vehicles or anything.
Well, when I look at this build, I think of Total Recall, where it's like the future
Right.
slums, So
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm a fan of that.
Yeah.
It caught my
But I mean, you had asked earlier what my future builds are going to be, and this is kind of the style that I'm looking to go with my modular cyber city.
right,
Is definitely something like this, where it looks old or retrofitted in a future time,
right,
where they took a classic building and just did different stuff with it. So yeah, that's another good shot of just all of the different greebling and colors that I use.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of this with the Fortnite mock, where I mix in a lot of plates and studs, and bricks with studs on the side that you put a tile on there.
Right.
Headlight bricks. You just really just get crazy with the randomness of the facade, and the more crazy you get, the more natural it looks.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you can see even the blue stripe below the windows that has the grays and the browns mixed in it, because that blue color over time is going to get chipped away, or you know patched with other materials. So that's kind of what those colors are representing.
Right. Looks real like the rest looking. Yeah.
Yeah. So now what you see here, this is um, the beginnings of that cyber city, where I was kind of doing, once again, another experimental build where I'm just playing with different techniques.
Okay.
I'm incorporating some lighting into my mock, and then I'm kind of figuring out the module. So to make this some sort of modular build to where I can actually disassemble it and travel with it
Mm-hmm.
is really key with a lot of my builds. So what I built, and this is a very, very close up detail shot of it. Right now, it's still actually put together. It's about 3 feet wide, and it's one solid, kind of like a subway piece. So
Okay.
you can see the rail, the tracks down there.
Right.
So it's meant to be like an underground subway style build,
Okay.
but it's more or less a decommissioned subway system, to where it's now just overtaken by, just the decomposition of the city as a whole. But
Mm-hmm.
then it's also a place where other creatures or people can, take refuge. So, I'm really getting crazy with a lot of the greebling, trying different stuff. And it's something that's kind of a sneak peek to what's to come for my current mocks that are hopefully going to be in the next 12 months or so.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that was a fun trip down memory lane, and
Yeah.
definitely seeing kind of the progress of a lot of my building, and really the amount of detail that I've evolved into.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. And I could see the light go on, and I know you probably go back and try to, do some of your old stuff again, and retry to, just recreate that, that flow where you started.
Yeah. And the good thing about, I mean, I don't know if it's good, but the thing I'm not afraid of is if I do something and I don't like it, I'll easily take it apart. I'm never married to one particular build.
Yeah.
That big mountain mock, I may take it to Houston here in a couple weeks, and
Hmm.
after that, I'm almost about to retire that one and disassemble it.
Wow.
Even though it took me so long, but I've showed it now for about a year and a half,
Hmm.
and it's time to move on. And like you had mentioned earlier before we went live, that picture I just posted to Instagram.
Yeah.
It's another building that I've had built for another. It's been together for about a year.
Okay.
And once again, it was just one of those experimental builds where I was just trying different building techniques, getting crazy with the look of it.
Right.
And I have other plans for those parts, so I'm going to take it apart. So I'm not afraid to do that.
Right. Right. Take all the pictures you can, man, and take that joke
Yeah,
apart.
and that's what's cool about Instagram, and especially all the pictures that you pulled today. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That was disassembled a long time ago. But
So
yeah, the pictures definitely help. I mean,
yeah, it
I
kind
mean,
of
it's funny because I wouldn't necessarily go back and build any of those things, but it reminds me of kind of where I was at and where I'm at now,
right, definitely,
and I
man.
guess makes me appreciate, the humble beginnings.
All right. One more question before I let you off the ice.
Yeah.
So your kids grow up, they move out, you know, they go off to college, you inherit all their Lego, right?
Uh-huh.
Work so much that you're in your Lego shop and your grandkids come in. Here's your second shot of turning kids on to Lego. What do you say to them?
You know, I for the way it started with me was I started with a bin of Lego and a couple sets, and I'm thinking way back to when I was a kid. This is how I can relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
Was when we got Lego as a kid, you know, we would build the set, take it apart, throw the instructions away, and we would just build whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would approach it with a lot of kids. Is I would probably throw the instructions away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would let them build it, because the good thing about building a set is you learn what the pieces are really designed for.
Right.
But then when you take it apart, so long as you remember, like, oh yeah, if I connect this and this, it makes this shape. That's really kind of the art form of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start building something from scratch. And that's even, you know, if a kid just builds a stack of, you know, 2x2 bricks and calls it a tower, there was no instructions for that.
Right.
So that's kind of how I would approach it with any kid. You know, even if like a neighbor kid came over and was like, "Hey, I want to play with Lego," I'm like, "Okay, great. Let's just start building something."
Right.
You know, and what I like to do, and I've done it with my kids, is I start brainstorming ideas. I'm like, "What do you want to build?" And they're like, "Oh, well, what if we do this?" I'm like, "Great, let's do this and this." So you almost kind of improv it to where you're like, yeah, we'll do that, and let's add this to it, and then we'll do that. And if they have something crazy like a bad idea, I'd be like, no, but let's try this. You know, you just kind of try something different and kind of keep those creative ideas going.
Right.
I would say that's how I would approach it now, and definitely in the future,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get them into it. And I wouldn't force it on them. I wouldn't be like, play with Lego before you eat your dinner or anything like that. But I would definitely encourage it.
Right.
And I think it's one of those toys, though, that it doesn't take a lot of encouraging. Like once someone starts playing with it, they really start to enjoy it enough to where, you know, they'll just play with it for as long as they want. So I don't know. It's weird times right now where most all kids are into video games, and everything's at your fingertips, and you know, it's just so accessible to just jump on and play games that I don't fault them for that. You know, I just think in the future they'll probably look back on it and probably want to get back into the hobby and wish that they would have done it now or then now, you know, whatever.
Right. Good deal, man. Good deal, man. I think we all, like, the Lego community, can learn a lot from you, from even just not only your builds, but I mean just being a better person at, you know, as a whole. You know, you definitely display the act of selflessness. You know, even with the little girl, and you made her day at the Lego show. I think that goes a long way, man. I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. Thank you for spending time, man. Folks, if you missed it, definitely go back, check it out. Don't take my word for it. Go to Instagram, Hidden Brick, or String Cheese and Applesauce, and he's on YouTube as well. Definitely go, you know, discover him yourself. I know I did, and I've come to find out I was a fan 2 times over. So, with that, I bid you love, peace, and Lego. Good night, folks.
Good night.